September 1984. A woman in orange robes walks into a salad bar in the Dalles, Oregon. She smiles at the cashier, waits for her to turn, and then quietly drizzles a brown liquid over the lettuce. By nightfall, 751 Americans are hospitalized, vomiting, feverish, and terrified. It remains the largest bioterror attack in U.S. history. But this wasn't an act of random nihilism. This was a sophisticated, analog precursor to the social engineering and election interference we see in the modern digital age. This was about stealing an election. Today, we are stepping away from the keyboard to look at a case that feels like a cybercrime documentary brought to life in the physical world. It is a story of a guru, 93 Rolls-Royces, 4,000 imported voters, and a secret biolab. I am the digital sleuth, and this is the rise and fall of Rajneeshpuram. In cybersecurity, a zero-day is a flaw in a system that the developers do not know exists. In 1981, Ma Anand Sheela, the 31-year-old personal secretary to the Indian guru Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, found a zero-day in the American legal system. Sheela and the Bhagwan were fleeing controversy in India and needed a new server to host their community. They found it in the Oregon high desert. A 64,000-acre cattle ranch. They bought it for $75 million in cash using shell corporations. This is a classic move we see in modern money laundering and dark web scams to hide the true source of funds, but Oregon had strict land use laws. You could not just build a city on a ranch. So Sheela found a loophole. Instead of asking for permission, they created their own reality. In May 1982, the residents of the ranch voted unanimously to incorporate a brand new city called Rajneeshpuram. Suddenly, a private ranch had its own mayor, its own public treasury, and most importantly, its own police force. They called it the Peace Force. But this wasn't a neighborhood watch. Many were ex-military recruits, and they began stockpiling Israeli Galil rifles, 357 Magnums, and Uzis. In the digital world, we would call this an escalation of privileges. They had moved from guests on a ranch to an armed administrative entity with the power to bypass state oversight. By 1984, the state of Oregon was fighting back with court injunctions, and Sheela's Plan A was failing. So, she pivoted to a tactic that every modern cybersecurity expert warns against: mass social engineering. Sheela launched the Share a Home program. She invited thousands of homeless people from across America to Rajneeshpuram for food and shelter. On the surface, it looked like charity. But in reality, it was a botnet of human beings. In a move that mirrors a major phishing attack designed to overwhelm a server, Sheela intended to use these 4,000 newcomers to flood the ballot boxes in Wasco County. If they could win just a few key seats, they would control the zoning and law enforcement for the entire region. But the system patched the vulnerability. Oregon officials realized what was happening and froze voter registration, causing the plan to fail. That is when the Rajneeshis moved from social engineering to a full-scale denial-of-service attack. Only instead of crashing a website, they decided to crash the human body. This is the segment of our cybercrime documentary where the malware becomes physical. In a secret lab on the ranch, cult members began brewing Salmonella typhimurium. The logic was chillingly binary. If the locals are too sick to go to the polls, The Rajneeshis win by default. They started with beta testing, poisoning 2 county commissioners with laced water. When that worked, they went live with Project Salsa. They targeted the salad bars of 10 restaurants in the city of the Dalles. Imagine the terror of an invisible threat. In the 80 seconds, people thought it was a freak flu. Today, we would see the same panic during a ransomware attack on a hospital. 751 people fell ill, making it a brutal, physical hack of the democratic process. But much like a poorly executed hack, the attackers left digital and biological footprints. While the locals were sick, they were also furious. On election day, they showed up in record numbers, some literally crawling to the polls to vote against the Rajneeshi candidates. The cult lost everything. In my line of work, we often say the biggest threat to any organization isn't an outside hacker. It is the insider threat. By 1985, Rajneeshpuram was eating itself. Sheila had bugged every room in the commune, including the Bhagwan's own bedroom. She was running a surveillance state that would make the NSA blush. When the Bhagwan finally broke his years of silence, he did not praise Sheila. He threw her to the wolves. He accused her of fascist crimes just to save his own skin. On September 13, 1985, Sheila fled to Europe with diamonds and cash, leaving behind a treasure trove of evidence for the investigators. The FBI finally had their logs. They found secret audio recordings, a hit list for assassinations, and vials of the same salmonella strain found in the victims. The collapse of Rajneeshpuram was swift. Sheila was arrested in West Germany and eventually served 29 months in prison. The Bhagwan was caught attempting to flee to Bermuda in a private jet loaded with jewelry, and he was promptly deported. So, what can we learn from this in a digital context? Verify the source. Just as Sheila used shell corporations to hide her intent, modern scammers use spoofed identities. Always verify who you are dealing with before incorporating them into your life. Second, monitor for anomalies. The citizens of Oregon noticed the strange share home influx and the sudden illness. In your digital life, monitoring your logs, like bank statements and login alerts, is your first line of defense. Finally, the power of the veto. The cult failed because the community refused to be intimidated. Whether it is a physical threat or a financial fraud mechanic, resilience is our greatest tool. If you ever find yourself a victim of a digital or social crime, isolate the threat immediately. Change passwords and freeze affected accounts right away. Report everything to the authorities. Use platforms like IC3.gov for cybercrimes. And always maintain backups. Ensure your identity is backed up with two-factor authentication. Just as the state of Oregon kept its legal records secure, the Rajneeshpuram saga was not just a weird cult story. It was a warning about how easily our systems can be manipulated. The desert has reclaimed the ranch, but the tactics used by Sheila have simply migrated to the web. Stay vigilant, stay secure, and keep digging. I am the Digital Sleuth. Would you like me to dive deeper into the technical surveillance methods Sheila used? Or perhaps explore another high-stakes case of digital to physical crime?